Welcome back to the Business Edge with Central Willamette. I'm your host, Eric, and I have Andy Shelley with CannExperts again joining us. We're going to be talking a little bit more about receivership today and just deep diving into actually what that means. Andy, thanks again for coming back. We had a great time with you last time, and I figured it'd be great, again, just to dive into something more of your expertise. So welcome back.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so how things been this last month or so since we've seen you? Anything new in the industry?
New in the industry. I just got back from Denver. Did a stint there with the International Cannabis Bar Association. All the cannabis attorneys get together once a year as their 10th anniversary. So that was kind of fun to hang out with them. And Regulators Association was there as well. So
is this something overarching for like all? Because I mean, obviously each state is different. So do you have to have one of those in each state, or is it just one of those things where everyone comes from each state to go to?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a group that some of those attorneys belong to, so it's great to meet up with them, and some of our attorneys are there and just kind of learn about what they're seeing in other states. So.
Oh, got it. Do you have any plans? Because you're just in Oregon, right?
Yeah, we have a couple of clients in Ohio, but mainly in Oregon.
Okay, perfect. How many out in Ohio do you say? You said two?
Yeah, two.
Nice. How long have you been out there then?
Probably a year now. Most of that's remote. We do fly in and do a couple of things with them throughout the year, but mostly remote.
That's nice.
Yeah.
And what's the biggest difference that you see between Oregon and Ohio? Which state do you like working in better? I'm assuming Oregon.
Oregon is, let me see how to politically do this correctly. Ohio is kind of up in the air right now. They came out with a, voter passed referendum that was very specific on what they wanted. And the people of Ohio overwhelmingly voted for that. And now some of the lawmakers are kind of piecing it apart and, changing things. And the industry's basically saying, no, this is what we wrote it specific. This is what we want. Stop changing things. But they're continually kind of messing with it at this point.
Everyone's putting their hand in the cookie jar, so to speak.
Yeah.
I heard I might be off on this, but I heard when Ohio initially tried to become legal, it was shot down because they were limiting the number of licenses to just a handful, and then they had I think it was like only 6, and then it was like basically limited to a few people, and then they kind of expanded that and opened up. Was that the case with Ohio?
Yeah, they were really methodical about rolling it out to where it wasn't going to be this mass licensing. It wasn't going to be
Oregon.
Yeah, I was staying away from that, but. Making sure that the medical folks and the people that have been in the industry got the first crack at it. And I think that's still pretty much the case, although we saw that some big, multi-state operators and whatnot came in ahead of time and bought a lot of those out so that they would have their first crack at it. So, but they're being a lot more methodical about the licensing. In not, ensuring, I think they have in the rules that every 6 months they come together and they look at the market and then make determinations on if there's going to be more licenses allowed or not. So it's kind of this ongoing process. At some point, you're going to get to this point where everything's like perfect and we're going to stop it right here.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Actually, temperature checks all the time. It's and again, it's not a bad thing in my opinion what Oregon did, because I think it was unique. It gave everybody an opportunity. It's kind of for free for all. Everyone can come in and make their mark, where you didn't have to have gobs amount of money to come in. You can just get your license from their initial fee and actually have a chance to compete in this market, which was great. But again, it's people learn from that. When you're growing 10 times the amount, or actually down to 4 times the amount of weed that Oregon can even consume, it was nice that other states kind of took that on and set up different procedures in place, or put different procedures in place to prevent that. That's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that interstate commerce would fix a lot of this, because I think we do have the best growing in it's. I don't think that's an argument. In Northern California, Southern Oregon seems to be a hot spot for growing, and we could supply a lot of the nation. But I think that a lot of people thought it would at least we'd have some state-to-state transfers by this point, and we're still kind of stuck with that not happening. So I'd like to see that open up here pretty soon. I know it was like Senator Brzezinski's dream to turn this into the Napa Valley of cannabis, and I think it can happen, and I think that would help out a lot of people here.
Yeah, that would make sense. Instead of each state producing their own, you can actually go to the state that has beneficial climate, or climate that's better for producing, and then all the excess that's here in Oregon can be shipped across different places. I always thought for sure this time they'd have something at least on the I-5 corridor, because everything along the I-5 from California to Alaska is basically legal, right? Even through Canada. So I always thought they would have a Canada corridor at least through there, where they can just go, charge a fee for going over boundaries or whatever, and tax money off that. But you're still going to get more for that pound by being able to go to multiple states rather than being stuck in Oregon. But it's interesting that hasn't happened yet, but to be determined, I guess. Yeah. Well, let's get into this topic we actually brought you in for. I want to learn more about this a little bit. Is receivership. That's something that you guys do with the CannExperts outside of some of the compliance stuff. Can you tell me what is a receivership and how does that work?
Oh boy, yeah, this will be fun. Receiverships are a tool for failing companies, or companies that have become insolvent. They're unable to pay their bills, that type of a thing. Typically initiated by a creditor who's owed money. Could be a bank, or some hard money lenders, venture capitalists, etc., and they're not getting their money back. And so there's a court proceeding to appoint a receiver, and the receiver basically steps in and runs the company. And the current leadership of that company really doesn't have much say in what happens at that point. A couple of things happen. It puts a stay on any sort of other litigation, or most other litigation, from happening against the company, or lawsuits and things such as that. So it's kind of a protective umbrella over the company during the time that it's in the receivership. And it's the receiver can look at the company and ultimately restructure it in some way if it looks like it could be profitable by going in a different direction, or selling off some of the parts of it, and then starting to pay its bills. Or the receiver could look at it and think, well, we just need to liquidate this thing and start paying off the creditors with the sale of the company.
So is this bankruptcy then?
Yeah.
So it's like right before you're like, I'm about to go in bankruptcy. So say I invested in Andy's cannabis shop, and I'm the investor. I can then call for receivership if you're like just too far in debt and not paying me back on whatever it is we agreed on. Is that how that works? Is that how that kind of starts out?
That's exactly how it works. I mean, I've seen a major secured creditor put a company in a receivership because some note became due on a loan that they had made, and they just weren't getting paid back. I've seen one partner put their own company into receivership, basically because the partners were now no longer getting along. And the one partner didn't have access to financials or operations or what's happening within their own company. There's kind of a roundabout way to shareholders, or you can basically effectively put your own company into receivership, which I've got one of those as well. So there's different avenues and different reasons why it happens, but it's kind of bankruptcy light, or what might happen before a bankruptcy event, before you put yourself into bankruptcy, basically. And so it's a totally interesting thing. I don't know how I fell into it, but it did happen, and currently I have 3 of them going on right now. So yeah.
Clearly a need out there that you fell into. So
yeah. If you know a little bit about business, and a little bit about accounting. You kind of have to be like a jack of all trades. But I think the biggest thing has been if you have a fairly good network in whatever industry you're doing the receivership in. So that's been probably the most helpful thing is like there's things I don't know. One of them was a grow, it was a farm, and I don't know how to grow these plants. So but I have a network of people that know how to do it, and then you end up having to negotiate with them on because typically these companies can no longer pay their bills, so they're not cash flow positive. Everything's it's burning, and now it's heading towards the ground. So you have to find you have to be a little inventive on finding ways to get through what you have to get through.
So it's like a recovery mission, so to speak. You're like just recovering as much of your assets or anything as you can, and before it goes to bankruptcy, essentially, right?
Yep.
So, and then when a company goes in receivership with you, you take over day-to-day operations on everything. Is that what you're saying? So
I do.
You have to outsource a lot of that stuff for the things you're not an expert in.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense then. So that's where you come in. So
ultimately, I'm responsible for the company. At that point, once you're stuck in there, and I'm relaying things to the court. The circuit court actually assigns the receiver. And so, I have to prepare a monthly report on what I did, and the judge gets that and gets to I'm kind of their boots on the ground. And so, so you're trying to gather as much information as you can. Obviously, in the beginning, it's pretty heavy in the beginning because you're walking into a company that you probably don't know anything about. And so you're trying to get a hold of accounting, what the cash flow is, who are the employees, how many employees do we have, all those types of things. And then sit back and kind of look over everything and, hey, what changes can we make right now to start helping this company along? And then, what's it going to look like, 4 or 5 months from now?
Yeah. So what does a successful, receivership look like? What's the goal? Is it just to get the company healthy again, just to get as much as your investment back and then sell it or close it? Or what's kind of the end goal of a receiver? What does a successful receivership look like, I guess?
Yeah, that one's a tough one. I think if you were able to come in and make the changes that are necessary to turn this around to where it is now profitable and it is now paying its debts, that would probably be the best case scenario. And I feel like if people didn't wait until it was on fire and now heading towards the ground, I probably shouldn't use that analogy, but
it's pretty close.
it's that could happen. It's almost like a lot of these when it happens and when you get assigned to it, it's on a death spiral, and at that point, your options for changing things are a lot less. And there's people coming after the company for money, and so as you can see, oftentimes it just turns into a liquidation event. And I'm just going to pay off as many people as I can, and then wrap this thing up. But yeah, I feel like if you could get to that company maybe a year ahead of that, and you can kind of see where it's going, but it's not on fire yet, then you could start making some changes, because the receiver has an amazing amount of power through the court, to terminate contracts, to terminate leases, to terminate, things that the company may be locked into that are no longer beneficial for them.
Got it.
So, and that's something that, I've done several times now when I go in and I look and I'm like, how much are we paying for this gorgeous office building, And it's like, wow, and there's 3 people working here.
Yeah,
okay.
Don't need that. Yeah, because also that office building, you're like, oh, I only need this space, but I'm locked into a lease for this giant space. You can walk in there and get them out of that, and just get them to what they need to, right? Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, so things like that, it can happen really quickly. The last time I terminated, it was an office building that I think there were like 7 people in there. It was big. You know, they had dreams of this being an amazing, you know, company, but it just didn't work out, you know. So I terminated that lease like the next day. And so, and it was just that quick, and we were moving out and, you know, working remotely in that case. So
how does that work? So like, since it is by the court just basically takes that legal contract and just kind of makes it less like unvoid, I guess, or avoids that contract. Is that how that works? You just have the power to void whatever you need to, just based on the needs of the business.
That's it.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And
then so in your opinion, when do people reach out? Like, when should they proactively reach out for a receivership versus being forced into it? What do you think? I mean, because people can obviously see probably things are going the wrong direction. A lot of times, again, like you said, it gets out of hand. You think you can, I equate it to like picking up the laundry. As soon as you bend over, pick something else, something falls over. So a lot of times, then eventually just throw everything in the air and you'll have nothing. So when's the point when you think people should start reaching out to you? What's a good indication, or is there one?
Yeah, I mean, I think kind of like I said, I mean, if you can see it coming a year, if you're looking at your business and you're projecting ahead 1 year and you're like, we are going to be completely underwater at that point, you know, that might be a good time to reach out. You know, doing these things, I've started learning what it looks like, you know, a year ahead of time, and maybe we can change some things at that point. Even outside of receivership, maybe just getting a little bit of consulting on what's going on and maybe how you can change things would be a good thing as well, and then keep you out of that situation.
That makes sense. Reach out to consult as a consulting purpose rather than just jumping into receivership. I guess that was my next question. What's the downside for going into receivership? Like, is it like, what's the benefit of staying out of that versus being forced, like proactively going into it?
Right. I mean, like bankruptcy, it's not as expensive as bankruptcy, but it is expensive. I mean, there's the receiver, the attorneys. Almost everybody has an attorney, including the receiver has an attorney as well, that's filing all the court documents and doing all this stuff. So it's not just me. You have to have a really good, you know, legal team. So there is expense involved, but like I said, when they're on, you know, kind of at that point where you're just starting a liquidating event, you know, you're just selling off, and then circling back around and then trying to figure out, you know, who's going to get paid off first and how much they're going to get of the creditors that are owed. So, yeah, that's. I forgot what the question was there.
Yeah, the benefit of jumping in, or what's the downside of going into receivership? That was kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, touch point on that anyway.
So yeah, I would say cost, and you know, it is a public event, although not as public as bankruptcy. There are some requirements to notify creditors via the newspaper and this type of a thing, and then try to get a hold of creditors that are owed so that you can. You know, kind of find out what the situation is and gather invoices and stuff to verify that they are an actual creditor of the company. So people know.
So it's a mark on the health of the business.
It's like a mark.
If someone goes in receivership, it's not quite as bad as bankruptcy, but you're like, oh, that guy was that business was in receivership. So it's just like a warning, so to speak, right?
Yeah, and I mean, you know. The vendors in this industry, as soon as they start hearing that, they're like, oh no, I'm not, you know, we're not going to send those people orders anymore because
unless
we're not
it's cash on delivery.
Unless it's COD, baby. Yeah, and I've had that happen too. I take it as anything that happens while I'm in charge, I'm going to make sure that you get paid. So I had to reach out to vendors and like, hey, look, anything that happened from this point forward, it's my responsibility. So when everything sells, you are going to get your money, you know. So I try you know, in an industry where that doesn't always happen, I'm not going to let it happen while it's, you know, under my watch. So
And so as far as receivership goes, it could be anyone appointed to that, or do they like reach out to specific people and like specific industries? Or I mean, obviously you're doing the consulting with CannExperts, so that you're a natural fit for that, but like who else would do a receivership on behalf of a business?
Yeah, sure. A lot of times it's an attorney. Other attorneys do receiverships, but on top of that, I think, I know some other receivers who aren't attorneys. They're just business owners. They've ran successful businesses. They understand, business, and just through having that, background that they're able to step in. Of course, knowing there's, as a receiver, you have to follow all rules, regulations, all the stuff. There's a statute on receiverships. And so having that background helps out a lot. Having government background helps a lot. Having a pretty decent network in an industry helps out a lot, those types of things.
So understanding the business obviously will help you make it a little bit healthier and help you understand how to make it healthier, what's ailing it. So that makes sense. And that's why I think you're perfect fit for that, because you do have all those. And I always say it is a business in cannabis, but it's just completely different. It's just really different because of all the regulations and the stuff we talked about in previous episodes. But so having that unique experience on how that regulation is different from a standard business is a good way to work around all that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Much different than running a little convenience store or something. So.
Same concept, but different. They're just different. Yeah. Same amount of inventory, same amount of people, same amount of everything, but one is just regulated a lot different. So
sure.
Do you have any interesting stories or anything that you want to talk about, like some successful receiverships that you've done in the past? Or
well, they're all successful in their own way. I mean, it just depends on
how you define successful, right? You're trying
sure.
Interesting ones that stand out.
Interesting ones. The first one I did was kind of a partner versus partner, and it was ex parte in court where only one partner knew it was going to happen. And so when I showed up at this farm with paperwork in my hand and basically telling this guy, I'm running your company now.
Oh, man.
And
unbeknownst to that person.
Yeah, I mean, you can imagine it was like a little contentious at first, and trying to explain to him kind of what, it was kind of the same thing. Like you asking me, what is a receivership? That was the first thing. He's like, what are you even talking about? This is my company. I own this property. You're standing on it. And I'm like, well, here's the deal. And so we spent the better part of a day literally at this farm, me and him sitting in lawn chairs talking to each other, and me trying to explain to him what was happening, what's going to happen next. And so it can be pretty interesting, I guess, especially that initial contact. But that's a pretty rare case where they don't know it's coming. I would say the other ones, everybody knew what was about ready to happen. So, but that was a weird one for me. And then, I mean, I was a cop for a long time, so I found myself sitting there like using my cop negotiating Jedi mind tricks to like try to get this guy to calm down enough that I felt fairly safe, sitting in front of him. So
that would be contentious. Just like, oh, hey, I'm here to run your business for you now. The other person didn't tell you. So, what I mean, at the end of the day, how do you talk someone off the ledge with that? Like, how do you bring them back? Like, what are you telling them? Hey, I'm here for you to give you this. Like, what's the pitch there?
Yeah, I mean,
because there's a benefit to having you do it. So
there's a benefit, although I don't, in that particular case, I don't think he's ever found one. But there's a lot of listening, quite honestly. I mean, people want to tell you their story after getting, after hearing, hey, I'm a great leader, I'm a great CEO or whatever. And it's kind of one of those things like, if I'm sitting here, there's probably something wrong, and I don't know, I don't know these people. So, I did a lot of listening that day, and then offered a lot of advice on how this was going to go, and that I would appreciate his help in, some of these things, because ultimately I'm walking into a situation where I don't have the keys and I don't have the codes, and I don't know what they're doing. So I need somebody to fill in all those gaps. Trying to be friendly, trying to, lower the the angst and everything else that's going on during these conversations, just kind of try to keep them productive and then keep them open to, I'd like to talk to you again tomorrow or next week, and we can go over a few more things and try to make this beneficial for you. So
literally just building that relationship and softening the blow, so to speak.
Yeah. And like I said, that's pretty rare that you're going to walk in and they don't know you're coming, but that was probably the most interesting one.
Either way, you're just trying to make the best of a bad situation.
Sure.
You're trying to get the most you can out of whatever's ailing that situation, the business or whatever. You're just trying to get to greener pastures, so to speak.
Yeah, and I mean, it's, in that case, it was a small business. I have another one where there were, about 100 employees, and so you still need people, and, in that one, we ran it as a going concern. It kept, producing, it kept selling, it kept doing everything. But you need those people, and you need to get in there and talk to them and calm everybody down that everything's going to be fine. You're still going to get paid.
Absolutely. So how long does the receivership typically take? Is there a timeline that usually you try to get in there? I want to be done in 90 days or because really you're still, like you said, you're still trying to operate while plugging all these holes, and is there a timeline that you try to stick to? Or
well, yeah, I mean, a receivership can last a few months, it can last several years. I don't think, and it kind of depends on how big it is and what all is involved. There is one that I walked into, a fairly small operation, and I just immediately, the assets that they had were so small and everything. It was okay, we need to, they owed a lot of people. And so it was a pretty quick decision. I talked to my team, I'm we need to sell everything as quickly as possible and wrap this thing up. I want it wrapped up in 3 months. It's, now we're in month 4 or 5. We have to deal with the state as well and licensing and these types of things. But, you see something that's pretty small and it's already, it burned up already. And now there's just embers. And so it's let's do the best we can, but let's be quick about this and efficient and cost effective on getting this thing sold off so that we can pay the creditors. And other ones that are bigger, like the 100 employees that are turning some sort of profit, that one you have to handle differently. You have people involved, and last thing I want to do is have a bunch of people lose their job over something that I do. So it's trying to make more informed, better decisions over time. So they're just different, but it could be a few months, it could be a couple of years.
Okay. Not one size fits all approach. Yeah.
No. It's every day you get a new, and what I tell people, it's every day you show up, you turn on your computer, you pull up your emails, it's okay, what problems do I get today?
What problem am I fixing today? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Was there anything else you want to share about receivership or anything like that?
No, if anybody has any other questions, just feel free to reach out, and I'll try to help out as best I can. Your attorneys are going to know everything there is to know about it, and so it's typically the client, the attorney that'll reach out. They're looking for a receiver to take over, and so they can get a hold of me.
Nice. And what's the best way to get a hold of you?
CannExperts.com or 541-241-6940. I remembered the phone number this time.
Awesome. Yeah. I can't even remember my own, so I don't blame you for that. I have to write it down all the time. So, well, if anyone wants to hear more about anything that we spoke about today, feel free to reach out to Andy and CannExperts anytime at their website or on the phone number he provided. Other than that, we just want to thank you for joining us on another episode of The Business Edge with Central Willamette, and we look forward to you guys joining us again in the future. Have a great day, everybody.
The information provided here is for informational purposes only and does not constitute financial advice. Consult with a qualified financial advisor before making any financial decisions.